Hi, and welcome to this solo episode of the Together podcast, where I am going to dive into the awakened woman's journey from frustrated and unmet to loving fiercely. And this is inspired by, this is like the seed that's being planted for the branch of the Together community that I'm going to be launching in the next few months, which will be specifically for women, those individuals identifying as feminine, to journey with me on the sacred journey of the feminine in sacred relationship. And Mike and I already together have our Together community with loving conscious couples. We meet every second Monday in the evening, and we dive into practices, teachings, and personal shares, vulnerability, all of the juicy stuff to practice together. And it's been beautiful to feel the healing in that space, the mirroring in that space. And so much of the reflection that I keep hearing is, we're experiencing more affection, more love, and also feeling inspired to step more into this evolutionary way of relationship. Also, people having lots of insights about how much we haven't been in community with those practicing this. And it can be really isolating. It can be really easy to feel isolated in the journey of conscious relationship. And so this is a place to intentionally show up. And so Mike and I are both going to be launching a masculine and feminine branch of this, as well as continuing to do this for couples. So this episode, I'm specifically going to be talking about the feminine journey, but I want to just plant the seed that even if you are a masculine listening, you might resonate with lots of what I'm sharing because, of course, you have an inner feminine. And also, depending on where you're on the spectrum, really feeling into what could you take away, what doesn't resonate if you are identifying as masculine. And if you don't personally identify with this, this episode will be really helpful to understand the journey of the feminine. And, maybe you're calling in a partner, maybe you're in partnership with a woman. This will be helpful for you to orient to that feminine journey and understand it, as well as how to be an ally for her in her journey, and what are the qualities that you are looking for and wanting to call forth in the woman that you want to be in relationship with. And so for all you women out here that are listening, I'm going to share some vulnerability about my life, but also a bit of a map. And I'm going to dive into, I really want to work with this fierce love piece, because this, I think, is central to my journey and to the journey of sacred relationship. Is, first of all, how do we actually let the anger and frustration that lives in us initiate us from the inside into a fierce love in service to our partner, in service to the relationship, in service to the greater world and our family? So I'm going to dive into that. Also, how do we embody a fierceness in our love that continues to commit to truth, to initiate our partner, to initiate the world around us? How do we embody that fierceness in a loving, clear way? And 3, I want to dive into how, as the feminine, we need to develop a very strong relationship to our inner masculine in order to call in a conscious masculine partner, and also in order to dive deeper into love with our in our current container of relationship. And then stay tuned, because I'm also towards the end going to talk about some key hangups where the feminine can really get hung up and how to work with that. And then some really key tips that I have found really helpful in the journey of sacred relationship. And so to map this out for you of what this looks like in my life now, my past was I had 2 conscious relationships, dove really deep with both people, and still felt really frustrated, still felt really unmet, even though there was so much love and commitment and intention. And so I got to really feel through the layers and the learnings of what that journey was. and dive deeply inside myself to really get to the core of what I needed to be as a woman, as a feminine, in order to really call in the partner that I was wanting to call in, and making mistakes, like making lots of mistakes. Looking back now, I'm like, oh yeah, I was embodying this, I was embodying that. Of course, that wasn't ending in a loving, connected relationship. And going through the initiations, I landed now in this beautiful partnership with my partner, Mike Elliott. And I can say with full honesty that I am experiencing not only a deeper, real love, a love that keeps deepening, that keeps evolving, but I also am getting to have the experience as a woman of being deeply provided for physically and emotionally. I'm getting to experience having a beloved partner who is executing our dreams, who is following through on his agreements, who continues to grow and evolve and is hungry for my insights, my awarenesses, my energy. And part of that is because of who he is, and the work that he did to get to the place where we could be in this relationship. And the other part of it is the work that I did to even be able to call him in, but also how I'm meeting him. Because one of the things that I can really see is if I was meeting him in different ways at different times, because I make little mistakes, there's moments where it's like, oh, that was a big miss. And I watch the impact. And it's like, right, if I was doing that all the time, every day in all these little ways, I would be relating with a different Mike. And this is just true because we're all relational beings. We're deeply impacted. And so I'm also getting a very clear mirror of if I show up in this way, which I'm going to dive into, I get to experience being deeply held and met and fulfilled and sexually satisfied by a masculine who is fucking showing up. And when I don't embody that in a good way, when I go into the not helpful patterns as the feminine, I get to see how fast he can crumble, or how fast I can cut him off at the knees, how fast we can get really separated. And so I'm here to share all these tips to dive in. One of the things that I really want to talk about, and I want to start off with, first of all, is I want to speak to this deep inner desire we have as the feminine. There's a deep inner knowing, a deep inner blueprint. And Mike actually spoke to this a lot in the Initiated Man episode. If you want to listen back, very powerful to hear him talk about it. And what this is the way that the feminine energy, both in all of us, like the feminine energy as an energy on the planet, and the feminine embodiment, as women with wombs, with certain hormones in our body, with certain ways that our brains are set up to mother and to tend and to care. We are meant to initiate. We are meant to feel deeply into life. We're meant to feel deeply into the connective field of our families and the connective field of our communities. And we're meant to feel that, intuit that, and then bring that into relationship with the masculine to then help him see, initiate him, help him become aware of what's needed so he can be in service to something bigger, in service to the whole. That is a sacred template that is in our DNA, in our biology, from the hunter-gatherer times, from how things were set up in terms of the energies the masculine needed to embody, the energies the feminine needed to embody for the tribe and the village to be successful. It's also, a divine blueprint that is set up when we think of children, when the feminine is opening to conceive, to be pregnant, to birth, to raise little ones. There are certain qualities that are needed for her to do that in a good way, which means really deep attunement with the emotional world, really deep attunement with the earth, really deep attunement with the fine subtleties of life and the underworld, the undercurrents, to notice little subtleties in our babies, to feel, the dangers that are around. And all of that shapes how we perceive things, what we can feel. in the divine dance, our biology is set up for deeply wanting love, deeply being in reverence of love, deeply wanting more safety and care and nurture. So we're wired for this. So we're going to feel when something's off in that. We're going to feel when something's needed for more safety, for more love, more connection. That is the gift we bring. That is how we're designed. And so there is this sacred template that we bring to the masculine, and we know it. And what I want to say is, I think all of us have the rage inside about all the times that we were not heard. There was no space for that. We were put down. We were told that was silly. We were made to be crazy. And this is both in our life, and this is also, ancestrally. Ancestrally, the mothers, the women in our lines, how shut down they were by the patriarchy, by men themselves. And so all of this is alive both in the morphogenic field, the collective field. It's also alive in our DNA, in our cells. And then we've had these experiences. I know I have, I know you have. We have had these experiences. We continue to have these experiences just in, even the subtleties of how our society, will belittle when someone deeply feels their emotions. If someone's like really deeply angry, the way that is not seen as important information, or the way that we're held in our moon time when we are deeply feeling the field and we have important information to deliver, and how it's just not seen as sacred and hasn't been. So this is the sacred package we hold. The beauty of the awakened masculine, when we're relating with the initiated masculine who's ready for the initiation, who's hungry for it, he wants that. He needs that. He wants to be of service to the love field. He wants the world to be a better place. And depending on where he is on the spectrum, he may have very little access to the subtleties and the bigger subtleties of that, his own intuition around that, or he might have quite a bit of access to that, but he knows that you have even more. And he's hungry for it. He wants to know. He's got his sword, he's got his bow and arrow, he's got his, he's riding on that horse. He's like, I want to execute this. I want to build a more loving world. I need you. Tell me, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? Tell me. And he's hungry for it. And when he gets the right information, when it's delivered in the right way, he's like, oh, and it's like you've spoken to a knowing in him. You've awakened something in his DNA. You have initiated him into the clarity of what the right action is. And I am experiencing this in my relationship where my partner, Mike, he deeply knows that initiation. He receives it. He welcomes it when I can deliver it well. And I'm going to dive into that. But also, he has an awareness that it's valuable and he lets it initiate him, right? So as women, we know that. We can feel that is the sacred way. And that rage, and this is the first point I really want to make, that rage can either initiate, light a fire, inspire, or it can absolutely destroy and tear down a relationship in seconds. Our job as the feminine is we have to get clear, first of all, in order to embody this sacred rage in a good way, in a fiery, initiating way. We have to get clear, first of all, what part of this rage is my inner little girl? And this is really important because I watched this play out for so many women. And it's part of the polarity talk. And some of you might not agree with me, but this is how I see it. There's a lot of understanding that the feminine should be allowed to be in her full emotional self no matter what, anytime, and the masculine needs to grow and expand to contain that. And I'd say yes, in the purity of form, yes. But the part of us that feels like we should be allowed to feel any feeling at any time, and I should tell you my feelings at any time, and you should just be able to handle it and receive it in all of its fullness and all of its That is the little girl. That is true when we're 3, when we're 2, when we're 5. That's true. When we're a little kid, whether male or female, we need to be able to feel our feelings at any time in any way we want. And it is our parents' job to figure out how to meet us. But when we start to project that onto the masculine and we think that that's what he's supposed to do, that's the little girl. So the little girl that's walking around and she's like, you should be able to meet me in this. You should be able to handle this. If you can't handle this, that's your work, you know? That is the little girl. That's not the grown woman. That is not the wise feminine. That's not the queen. And we all have this little girl who fully believes and gets confused between she thinks that she can feel this divine template, you know, that is meant to be. And then she grabs onto that and she thinks that all of her needs as a little girl, where you should just meet me no matter what, and I'm going to throw a tantrum and I'm going to say whatever I'm going to say and you need to take it. She gloms on and gets confused that there's a difference between this divine template and what we're speaking to here, this inner little girl who wants to be able to feel whatever she wants to feel. And what I would say is, from my experience working with women, my experience in myself, collectively, many women are really in that still. It's huge. Often when couples come to work with Mike and I, that little girl is very alive. She now has an adult brain that has made a lot of stories about why her anger is justified. And she's, just ready to just, attack. And this can be both subtly or really obviously. So for us as the feminine, the first thing we need to do is we need to build a relationship with that anger. We need to build a relationship with the little girl who wasn't met emotionally, but we also need to build a relationship with the anger in there about how much the feminine energy in us hasn't been met, hasn't been received. Because it's our work to discern and get to know that anger so we can get better at noticing where the anger is coming from inside of us. So, for example, if the anger inside is coming from the little girl, then we know, this is something I need to work with. This is something about the past. I need to work with this. I need to turn towards this little girl. If the anger is the woman, then we need to also discern, is this anger about right now? How much of it is about right now with my partner? And how much of it is this anger that is at the whole shebang, at the whole collective, all the moments we haven't been met as an adult, at the ancestral pieces? Because we need to get better and better at discerning these inside so that we know which anger is coming from what. And each one is going to require different actions, different ways that we're going to show up. So it is not the masculine's job to just receive the unfiltered roar of the anger. It's not. There is a place where the masculine can absolutely receive your anger, and I'm going to dive into that. And it's important that he builds capacity to do that. But it's not his job to receive your unfiltered, totally out of control anger. He might be able to build tone to love you there when it spills and it happens, but it would not be healthy to develop a relationship where you are doing that all the time, feeling justified in it, and he just keeps getting better and better at holding it. It's your job to work with this anger. It is our job as the feminine to work with this anger without taking it out on the masculine. I know for me, it's been a huge journey, in my last 2 relationships. It was really working over and over this muscle of getting to know the anger. And what I would say is when we get the hang of the anger itself becomes an initiation inside of us. So what can happen is now when I feel that anger is actually what can bring out my fierce love. So it's like deeply feeling like I'm angry at how much the feminine hasn't been heard. I'm angry at how much there's a lack of connection in our family right now. I'm angry that my son's not getting enough presents right now. I'm angry that my daughter's not being heard in her feelings from her father. It's like feeling all of that and then listening to it as, oh, this is what I stand for. This is what I stand for. This is what I want my love to stand for. And hear this. This is what I want my love to stand for. So in this place, the anger can initiate and fuel a love that is so fierce. And the first thing that fierce love has to do, because it's in service to love, is it's got to bring in a lot of boundary inside of you, inside of us. So the first thing that sacred rage needs to do inside of me when I'm like, oh, this is what I'm not okay with, is it's got to come in and it's got to say, hey, no, Courtney, we're not going to go say that thing to Mike right now because that's not actually in service to what I'm wanting to build. Oh, hey, Courtney, who wants to be sarcastic with Mike right now because I didn't like how he brought that energy into the kitchen with our family. That is not what I'm wanting to build. And so first of all, that anger's got to come inside and be fierce inside with, we're not going to talk that way, actually. We're not actually going to express that way at our partner, no matter how real it is, what I'm feeling in the field. That's not how we're going to bring it. So it's letting that anger in and then letting it hold fierce boundary inside of you about what you want to stand for. So that then you inside of yourself can have a clearer understanding of the love you're wanting to build. And for me, this is the key to fierce love. I have to, inside myself, have a fierce boundary about being in service to love that lives inside of me. And so in the daily, day-to-day, that fire holds me accountable. That fire reminds me of the vision that I'm actually wanting to live. So this is the fierceness relationally. And, for me with Mike, I remember feeling this inner agreement of, in this relationship, I'm going to fiercely hold myself accountable to what it is I'm actually wanting to build. So I'm wanting to build moments of connection right now. I'm wanting Mike to feel more emotionally connected to Cedar and I right now. So what's actually going to lead to that? I'm wanting for us to be more honest with each other about what we're feeling right now. Okay, well, what are the conditions that's actually going to do that? And the better I've gotten at this, of feeling the fire and I listen, the more that I can actually move towards with love. And choose in that moment the way love would say it, the way love would deliver it, the way love would invite. And it requires a pretty fierce rage inside to have enough boundary inside so that all those generational patterns, all those collective patterns don't spill out. So thank goodness for the rage. Thank goodness for the anger. It's a fierceness that can hold boundary. So, and I highly encourage you to dive into working with Kali, the Hindu goddess, because this is a really good example of Kali, that inner boundary. So the second thing I want to dive into is the willingness in the feminine to be fierce with the masculine. This is really important. And when I say fiercely loving, what I mean is this is where we choose from a conscious place to bring the fierceness of the anger into the relationship intentionally to call out and initiate the masculine. So if we think of, being fierce inside ourselves, for some of you, it could be that the fierceness keeps spilling out at the masculine. For some of you, it might be that the fierceness ends up turning inward and you don't share it or you don't speak it. Especially where this can happen, right, is if you're in partnership with a masculine who can shut down really easily or get overwhelmed really easily and then just completely disappears in the relationship. Often what can happen is the feminine can learn not to bring the fierceness or not to make the masculine uncomfortable. And so this is this like flip side, right? Where the feminine as women, we have been really trained to both consciously and unconsciously to not make the masculine too uncomfortable, to walk on eggshells. How can I emotionally maneuver so he feels safe enough to connect with me? And there is an attuned place where we need to attune with how to set the stage in a good way for the masculine to feel safe. But that is not the same as wanting them to always feel comfortable or not wanting to make them uncomfortable. And so if we think of the fierceness in the feminine, the fierce love that's needed is, first of all, to call out the masculine, first of all, we have to have a really strong connection inside of ourselves to spirit, to the bigger vision of the relationship and to the guidance of spirit. Because I need to be able to hear inside myself when I'm feeling a rage at the masculine and I've worked with that rage inside, and now I'm clear, like there's something happening outside that needs to be dealt with in a fierce way. In that moment, I need to be able to listen to spirit, listen to something bigger, ask the earth, pray to the ancestors, get clearer information from something bigger, because that's what's actually going to help me surrender and trust the process. Because it takes a lot of courage to move towards and call something out with love when we know it's going to make the masculine uncomfortable, when we know it might make him angry, when we know he might go into inadequacy, when we know he might go into shame. And I think we all, like I'm raising my hand, know that feeling of, oh, I don't want to talk about this because I know that he's going to go into shame. I know he's going to do this. I know he's... And our commitment, if we want to be a fiercely loving feminine, we have to keep being honest and truthful. We have to continue to deliver the fierceness, even when we don't want to, even when it feels like, oh, because if we slide into not, we will compromise the love and we will absolutely compromise the relationship. The art of it is how we deliver it. The art of it is figuring out the rhythm of it, hearing when the right moment is, how to deliver it, but knowing that we could deliver something just right with just the right fierceness, and it could land in the masculine, it could trigger him, it could send him into his own healing spiral, it could make him really uncomfortable, and he could blame you. But being the feminine, we have to be able to trust that spirit and the feminine is moving through us in something bigger to bring something into awareness. And so we have to be in service to that truth and that bigger love, knowing that even if our partner feels uncomfortable, even if it means that he gets shaky, even if it means that he withdraws his love for a little bit, that this is in service to something bigger than just the momentary goodness of being connected. And we have to be so fiercely devoted to that bigger love and truth and to our role that we can surrender again and again to the rupture in the moment, to the unknowing in the moment, for that bigger love to flow. And the masculine needs this, because if we get too hyper attuned and we start to bend ourselves or not want to say that thing because we don't want to hurt them or not want to, we will doom the relationship. Intimacy will not be able to happen, and the masculine will not have the information he needs to evolve. And the second we do that, the second that we start to dim ourselves or maneuver ourselves because we don't want to make them uncomfortable, it is a deep insult to the masculine, because there's a part of us that doesn't trust them to go through the fire of the initiation. The second that I notice that moment of, oh, if I talk to Mike about this thing right now, it's not, he's already feeling kind of shitty. I know it's going to trigger his inadequacy. Oh, but today is the day I have to talk about it. I can feel the part of me that's like, I'll just avoid it. Being fiercely loving is, I got to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to trust him to go through this. And if he needs to withdraw a bit, if he needs time to process it, if he needs to express, I'm going to let him go through that. I'm going to trust his process, because this is what I know needs to be said. I need to bring this up. And it's doing it. And then it's trusting him. It's trusting that he's going to express things. He's going to feel things. He's going to be uncomfortable, but that he'll find his way, and he'll find his inner clarity about what he needs to become aware of about that thing. And you have to embody that again and again and again in order for the masculine, A, to be gifted the initiation, and B, in order for him to feel and discover whatever he needs to feel and discover in his own way. Yes, sometimes that will mean that there is a masculine that doesn't want to do it. Sometimes that will mean that he completely crumbles and he pulls away and he doesn't want to do it and he doesn't want to. But that's great information for you about where he's at and whether he's willing to show up. Sometimes it'll mean that a masculine ends up on his knees and then he's like, shit, I need help. And that's what's actually going to make him reach out to that men's group. That's what's actually going to make him get therapy once he's on his knees. Sometimes he's going to figure out maladaptive strategies for a while to try to avoid it. And then that will bring him to his knees. And then he can be like, oh, that was not the right way to handle that. But we have to keep being real if we want him to find his way to meet us in the relationship that we are intending together. So in that moment, you are committing to this shared agreement you have about love and truth more than making him comfortable in the moment. And that is where the feminine has to be a warrior. That's where we have to be fierce, and we have to know how to hold ourselves in that moment. We have to know how to love ourselves, celebrate ourselves, be like, wow, that was so courageous. I really see what it is you're feeling there, Courtney. I really see what it is that you are speaking to. Wow, that took so much courage to bring that up. And loving ourselves through that, and then letting the masculine go through it. Because that is the only thing, that mirror of truth is the only thing that's going to help him meet you more. Every time I do that with Mike, sometimes it gets really messy. Sometimes it doesn't get messy at all. Sometimes it takes him days. Sometimes it takes an hour. But every time I am surprised by the initiation he goes through, the insights he has, what he brings back to me. And he's better able to meet me. He loves me deeper. And we land in a deeper well of trust and love. And any time that I don't listen to that inner guidance that's bigger, that spirit guidance, that inner guidance of what needs to be said, what needs to be talked about, I deplete the relationship. Things get floppy. We lose each other. And I deny both of us the initiation that life is inviting. And I watch this with women. What happens is, right, in therapy, I've watched this lots, where couples come in and the woman has done this so many times because maybe she tried a few times and the masculine felt really big feelings. He got mad, he got upset. And the minute that she was met with that, she crumbled. She lost herself. This is very common. When the masculine goes to go through the initiation, and he gets emotional, he has the feminine collapses. She thinks something's wrong, and she gives in. She lets go. She doesn't hold it. You gotta hold it. You gotta hold it while he goes through it. If you crumble, if you are afraid of him going into that, if you're afraid of him feeling shame, this is a big one. There's a couple that we have worked with where, he feels shame when she's really honest about her feelings. He goes into this shame, and then he shames back, right? Like, well, you shouldn't need that. You shouldn't need that apology, or you shouldn't need that. And then she goes into a doubt about, well, I don't want to make him uncomfortable. But the thing is if that's the truth in you, that you need to be heard about something that's hurting. And you go to him and he feels shame. He needs to feel the shame. He's got to feel the shame. He has to learn how to be with shame. And you need to learn how to hold the truth of what you're feeling and let him feel the shame and not fix it. We cannot fix what they feel here. And it's only in that rhythm of allowing that then the masculine can come back with the treasure, with the insight, with something new. So, if you have been one of those women that's been doing that, your invitation is, how do I repair some of that and start to speak these micro truths? How do I start to bring this in? The next thing is that the third point is we have to build a very strong inner relationship with our inner masculine. And this is the difference between that inner child that I was speaking to, that inner little girl that's so angry, versus the feminine who is in her queen, who is in her seat, who is consciously engaging with this role of feminine. Is that inner relationship with the masculine. Because the masculine energy is the containment of the deep sea of emotions and the ferocity of the feminine. The inner masculine is also the one that can execute things that are needed and who can hold you when your masculine needs to fall apart, feel vulnerable, go through a difficult time. If I am relying on my partner, the masculine, to always be strong, always be the masculine, always be in that seat, things will crumble because he cannot. That's not human. Also, it means that I will continually be frustrated and feel unmet by him, because the only masculine that can meet you all the time consistently is going to be your inner masculine. So, we as the feminine need to get to know and build our own inner masculine. And I'll describe this, in the moments where, here's a really good example. I've made some really silly spills in our house. I put the wrong thing on our wood fire and it exploded and got butter everywhere. And Mike is very particular, likes to be clean. He's really careful about stuff like that. So inevitably, butter explodes everywhere, glass explodes everywhere. And, he goes into his process. He goes into his shame. He's like, trying not to shame me, but he's angry and in that moment, he is totally unable to hold for me the masculine energy that I would love, which would be, oh, sweetie, I'm glad that you're being creative. I'm so glad that you're playing around. And of course, mistakes happen. That's okay. That kind of energy, like the loving father that is just present with the process. Like, I welcome your beautiful mess, So in that moment, what do? I go into my inner father, my inner masculine, and he says all those things to me. And he says, I just love watching you learn and grow and expand and be creative. And I love how on a whim you'll do something. I love that about your feminine energy, that you're just like flowing in the kitchen. So my inner masculine is the one that meets me in that moment, which then allows Mike to go through his inner process of what he needs to go through, so that then eventually he's able to meet me. He's able to move towards and offer me what I'm needing. But if in that moment I don't know how to offer that to myself, I'm going to take all of that out on him and take away his opportunity to have his process with what's happening and his growth. So our inner masculine needs to be right there to offer us the strong stability, the consistency, the presence, all of that at any moment that we need it inside, that the moment that our partner isn't available for it. The other thing is this containment piece. And so, in this sacred blueprint where the feminine is really meant to be um, be expressive, to share, to be like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm sensing. And the masculine is the one to execute, to get clear what to do with that, to guide, to have banks, you know. We need to have that inside as a mature feminine. So instead of spilling everything I'm feeling and sensing and thinking onto the masculine, I need to have an inner masculine that is actually the one that is deciphering and containing and deciding what I'm going to share, when I'm going to share it, maybe even dial down how big the emotions are a little bit, depending on what it's about and depending on how much my partner can receive me in that moment. I need to have the inner masculine who is my banks so that when I deliver my feminine, I'm in a maturity with it. I'm not just an ocean spilling all over, because that's the little girl having a tantrum. My inner masculine is the one that's going to guide me inside in how to share in a good way. He's the one that's going to hold me and help me contain when I just want to spill. He's the one that's going to turn towards and say, hey, wow, there is a really important emotion here. Let's get to know it. Let's slow things down. Let's breathe together. Let's get clear how we want to deliver this, what we want to deliver. Hey, let's maybe set up some parameters with our partner. Okay, this emotion needs to be expressed. Our inner masculine is the one that's going to go over and say to our partner, I really need to express my anger. Do you have a moment right now? Could we sit down on the couch? Could I express it? He's the one that's going to set up the parameters for it to happen in a good way. So not only is our inner masculine the one that's going to contain that ocean, but he's also the one that's going to keep us safe. Because if I move towards my partner to share something vulnerable when he's not available for it, that's going to re-traumatize me or re-hurt me, you know? Or if I'm taking my emotions to someone who can't meet me without that healthy masculine inside, then I'm going to get hurt over and over and over. You know, my inner masculine is the one that can discern, you know, there's certain places where Mike hasn't quite learned to meet me, because relationship is a journey and I'm still learning how to meet him too. So my inner masculine is the one that notices that, hey, Courtney, okay, Mike hasn't quite figured out how to meet you here. And I know this is a really tender piece. So I actually don't think we should bring it to him right now. Maybe we need to actually talk to Mike about, hey, there's this place where I want to feel more met. Can we talk about that first before I open the floodgates and share? So the inner masculine is the one that's going to set the structure so that when that feeling, when the emotions are ready to be expressed, to be felt, when you're going to deliver the sacred message of what you're feeling, that happens in a good way. And so, you know, how this looked for me in the past, because I'm a very emotional person, I'm the kind of person that I'll be having an emotion, and to me, it's like a 2 out of 10. Like it feels like a tiny little blip. And I'll express it, and everyone else is like, oh my God, you're so emotional. And I'm like, whoa, if you knew how emotional I actually am inside, it would just annihilate you, because I have a very strong ocean inside of me. My emotions are ginormous. I'm a very watery person, Scorpio, Cancer, you know, my EQ, if you know the gene keys, I'm a 2, which is very expressive emotionally, and I'm Rapture, which is a very fiery key. So I'm a very emotional being. My inner masculine has to be really solid for me to deliver my emotions in a way that anybody is able to receive and meet me. And I'm grateful to have had that, because it's made me learn how to work with that in a really big way, which I think is why I'm able to now be in this beautiful relationship that I'm in. And I tell you, when I didn't know how to contain, I was washing the masculine away. I was beating him up. I was not intentionally, but I was completely overwhelming the masculine, who was totally willing and wanting to meet me, not because he can't be with big things, but because it was completely uncontained, completely unrelational, not relational. And the better I get at this skill, the more I'm met relationally, the more my emotions have space, the more that I'm getting deeply what I wanted. Whereas before, I would be so emotional, hoping to be met and not being met, being missed and missed and missed and missed because I was washing everyone away. But I thought that was the way. It's like I'll be more emotional. And I think many of you probably would put up your hand. How many of you, when you feel like you're not being met emotionally in the relationship, you become more emotional? Well, I'll show him more of my emotions. I'll get the emotions bigger. I'll make the emotions more obvious. And that will push that being met emotionally further and further away. We actually have to come in, contain, learn how to work with it first, then know how to allow it to flow when the right containment, the right structures, the right setup is there. When it's the, in right relation. And that is when you're actually going to be met very deeply in the emotion. And the more success you have in that, where you get to share in that way, be met, and your partner gets to meet you and meets you in a good way, then that sets up this beautiful setup of now you both are going to want to meet in that place, as opposed to it just being a mess. So this is the maturing. This is the key of the maturing. And I've watched this, we had a couple where there was the woman was so beautifully connected to her emotions, but really just letting it spill out, and not containing it, not taking self-responsibility. And her partner was beautiful. He wanted to meet, but he was just getting washed over by the emotions. And so she really had to do that in her work to get a handle on herself, to get a handle on what am I needing? What am I feeling? What's this anger about? Oh, it was about her childhood. Oh, okay, this is my piece to work on. And then getting individual sessions to work on that. Oh, okay, this is what I'm actually angry at with him. And the more she did that, the closer he came. He built his tone to meet her, and she was starting to be met in these places she'd never been met. And it was absolutely beautiful. And they started to be able to actually maneuver in life in a more emotional way. And he was opening more and more to, oh, these are all the ways I want to meet you more and more. Now, I want to talk about some hangups with the fierce loving. One of them I just spoke to, but I want to speak of it again. When you move towards your partner and you're sharing, are you spilling? When your fierce love comes through, is it from a spilling place? Because there is an art as a feminine to getting the hang of knowing what is the thing to bring forward to the masculine and what isn't. So for example, we can think that being met emotionally means sharing every emotion that we have all at once, or all the emotions of the day, talking and sharing all these emotions. No, that's spilling. What starts to happen is the masculine can't discern what's the important piece here and what's not. Now we need to have him hold space for us to open and share without being worried about it. But we have to be discerning about what the thing is that we're going to do that about. If I go to him about something that happened at the grocery store that wasn't that big of a deal for me, but I express all of my emotions, and then right after that, I want to dive into this deep emotional piece, it's going to be unclear to him where to put his true presence. But when we can get the hang of, when I move towards my partner and I want him to meet me in this emotion, that he can trust that I'm bringing something important, that he can trust that I've distilled down, this is important and I'm bringing it to him. He's going to be able to open and trust you so much more than if you're just kind of spilling throughout the day everything you're feeling about everything. Because then he's going to start to build up walls and build up structures to try to contain or guide or and it's going to chip away at his trust. But if you can come to him not from a place of spilling, but from intention and share your emotions, he's going to build trust in your emotional world. He's going to build a thirst for it. Well, every time she moves towards me and she shares, there's so much depth that comes. There's truth that comes. There's insight that comes. he's going to be hungry for it. He's going to want to meet you. He's going to feel satisfied by it. So this is important. What does that look like in your day? Are you just, when he walks in from the end of his work day at work, do you just spill about everything you're feeling? We want to be able to express, but not from that place. So the work would be, when he gets home, what is the core thing that I'm needing him to see and feel about me right now? And so instead of spilling every feeling, everything that went wrong in that day, instead, can he walk in the door and can I go up to him and can I say, oh, I've been feeling such a tenderness in my chest today and this like sadness. Ugh. And I'm feeling it in my chest and I'm just really needing a hug and for you to squeeze me and just tell me everything's okay. That is going to land very different than spilling about, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then. And the thing is, you will feel more satisfied with how he meets you because you're also going to the more vulnerable place. The other one that I want to share, which is a beautiful piece, is as the feminine, part of our role is to dream the big dreams and bring the dreams into reality, to share what we're seeing and what we're desiring. Like, let's vision a relationship. Let's vision this year. Let's vision. Like the feminine is so excited to share. And then we could do this and then we could do that. And we long for the masculine to meet us. We long for the masculine to hear us. Now, what we have to get good at is it's the little girl that is the one that's like, let's sit down and for 3 hours, I'm going to share all my dreams. Or, hey, you just got home from a long day of work. And so I want to share all the things that I've been visioning all day in a very excited way. Blah, 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 blah. That's not the queen. That's the little girl. So it doesn't mean that our masculine doesn't want to hear our dreams. It doesn't mean that he can't. But we have to get better at how we're delivering it, how we're talking about it. This is where we need to start to attune with, I'm going to share this one dream, and then we can talk about something else. I'm going to wait till we're cuddled up and we're feeling connected, and I'm going to check in. Hey, would you be open to hearing something I'm really excited about that's coming up? And then sharing, but sharing a piece of it, a part of it, so that he can digest it. Because one of the ways we can really overwhelm the masculine is in our excitement, we want to share everything in our heart all at once. And the part of him that wants to provide gets completely overwhelmed by it because he's wanting to figure out how to do it, or, and instead of us being like, well, I don't need you to figure it out, I just want you to hear me. How can we actually understand that when we're delivering these dreams, these are huge, huge activations we're actually delivering. We're actually bringing magic to them. And it will be overwhelming if we just share it all or we just expect them to take it at any moment. So our job is, when you go to share your dreams with the masculine, it's a magical spell. You got to figure out what's the right amount of magic in this moment, and then I can share the next piece another day. We need to take responsibility for the magic we're holding in our wombs. It doesn't mean that he can't meet us, but it means we need to take self-responsibility for the power of the activation itself. And then the last hang up that I want to talk about is where the feminine can have a hard time holding the masculine in his vulnerability. And it might sound surprising because in a lot of ways, as the feminine, we're all hungry for the masculine's vulnerability. I watch it again and again when the masculine in sessions or in our online community with Mike and I, when the masculine goes into his emotions, the feminine's like, oh, thank God, yes. And we want the masculine's vulnerability. But also, there is definitely a shadow for the feminine where it can make us angry. It can bring out a frustration because we just want the masculine to hold us. We don't have space for your vulnerability, or we want their vulnerability to happen quickly and be done. Because in a way, when the masculine goes down, when he goes into the vulnerability, it's kind of like the whole kingdom falls to the ground for a little bit. in the sense that he's not holding things. So it's like, pew. And for the feminine, that can be scary. We can get scared that he's going to get stuck there. We have a lot of programming that tells us that there's something weak about that. We might have unconscious ideas about how long he's allowed to be vulnerable, or, you can feel this emotion, but not that emotion. There could be this whole programming. And then what happens is also as we can see him as weak. I watch it again and again where we'll be working with a couple and the masculine will finally go into the vulnerability that's underneath. And instead of the feminine being like, oh, thank you. Instead, there's a moment of relief, like, oh, he's finally named the thing that's true. And then instantly she's on him. Well, you got to do something about that, or you need to fix that. Da, 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 da. That is not it. That moment when he goes vulnerable, when he finally drops into what's underneath, you got to come at that with fierce love, which means holding back whatever you're feeling, whatever's happening for you, and loving so fiercely. Like, I'm going to love you in this place. And I'm going to love you as long as you need for this to unwind, so that then we can step forward together in a new way. It's not the time when he goes vulnerable to take advantage of him, to come at him. This is the time to hold such sacred protective space around him so that he can actually unwind what's there, so he can actually heal. So we have to hold boundary of, this isn't the time to talk about this and that. It's not the time for me to bring in how he hurt me. It's not the time. This is the time for me to love him, to love, and to deeply revere the amount of strength that it takes for a masculine to go there. I have had many women move towards me and talk about perceiving Mike as very feminine. And I always think that's super interesting because he's actually very masculine. And what I understand they're speaking to is because he feels his feelings. He'll go vulnerable. But I'll be real about, for me being in relationship with Mike, my experience is that is what makes him very masculine, because I see the amount of strength, courage, will it takes as a man right now on the planet to go into that emotion, to let people see him in it, to feel it, and let it initiate him. That takes way more strength, courage, devotion than being strong for men right now. That requires an absolute warrior. And so to me, that is a quality of masculine, of going into that feminine, going into the emotion, feeling it, is so strong. And every time he emerges from it, he's even stronger. He's even stronger. He's even stronger, because in that place is the strength. And so we as the women, when they're in it and they start to doubt it, when they start to go, oh no, you think I'm weak now. Oh no. Like when they go into the shame about it, when they go into, oh no, you're seeing me. Our job is not to try to teach them. It's not to try to fix it. But what we do need to do is we need to stand there and we need to look at them and say, you are being so strong right now. This is so strong. Thank you for doing this for our family. Thank you. And so when he's on his knees and he's having doubt, you see the strength. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for feeling this. And then that is what's going to allow him to really embody that masculine strength. And that is your deep gift as the feminine to the healing of the masculine, but it's also your deep, deep offering of allowing the masculine to actually have a deep relationship with his emotions so that he can actually attune to his children, attune to his partner. So I think fierce love right now as the feminine is to fiercely safeguard the vulnerability of the masculine. So then what I want to talk about is a tip that is key for me in relationship with Mike before we end. And something I notice is a theme for the feminine in general. As the feminine, we can really believe that we know and he doesn't. And often I'm around very conscious women who know that that's not true. But in the way they're speaking of their partner, the way they talk to their partner, the way they show up in therapy, the way they show up, they believe in a deep way that they know and their partner doesn't. We have to practice the opposite. We have to practice. My partner knows things and sees things that I can't see. And we need to assume that every day, all day. My partner has a sense of things that I don't. He has a wisdom of things that I don't, that I need. And so just check out the difference there. One is I know and he doesn't, and I need to help him understand because he can't see it. The other is I can't see things. There's things I can't see. There's things I don't have a sense of that he does, and I need that. For me, the second way makes me curious, makes me ask questions, makes me open. It makes me relational. As women, we need to practice this every day. So when the masculine does something that seems absolutely ridiculous, totally unsafe, like misattuned, we need to stop. Doesn't mean that might not be true on a level, what we're seeing. And we need to say, he must be able to see or sense something that I don't. And then ask about it. Be curious about it. What is he trying to teach you? Because in every moment through the day and everything we're going through, we're initiating each other. So he also is constantly mirroring to you what you're not seeing, what you're not feeling, what you're not aware of, what you can't see from your vantage point. And your job is to be open to that. Make space for it. How can he help you grow in ways that you would be surprised? And that has been so central for me to my growth, because in previous relationships, I couldn't do that. I was way too stubborn. I could not do that. I did not have space for it. And with Mike, I've been able to. And what I have discovered is that there were all kinds of parts of me that needed someone to come in who saw it different, who had different information to help initiate me. You know, a really simple one, and this is like a pretty benign one, but I remember when our son was just a few days old and he wanted to take him in the shower, and I was so safeguarding like how tender and precious and careful you need to be with little ones. And my intuition was like, no, that'll be way too overstimulating. He hasn't even had a bath yet. Like, that's going to be so overstimulating. But I'm in this practice. So I listened. I asked him questions. He said, I really feel like he's going to like it, da 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 da. And so I opened to it. I tried it. I said, okay, well, let's try. We go in the shower, and Cedar loved it. Loved it. He just melted into it. That is a short example of how that has played over and over and over and over in our relationship in many, many ways throughout the day, where my consciousness looks and says, well, that's Mike being impractical. That's Mike not attuning properly. That's Mike da 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 da. And then I discover, whoa, he's seeing something totally different. Whoa, I never would have thought about it like that. I never would have seen it like that. Whoa. And it turns out, I'd like to think about things a little more that way. And we need to open to that, because just like inside, we're needing to build a relationship to the inner feminine or to the inner masculine inside of us. We also are really needing the masculine outside of us. to initiate something in us that has been lost generationally, which is how to actually receive the masculine's wisdom. And that is the biggest gift that I am getting from sacred relationship, is the masculine is teaching me so much. And that stubborn little girl, she was missing out big time. And so my wish for all of you who are listening is that you get to find that deeper union with that dance in relationship and get to experience the gift that comes when we can find that right relationship. And if you're wanting to dive deeper into this work, you can check out our Together online community with other conscious couples that are in this journey of sacred relationship, with live calls and a community chat and a growing library of resources. And also you can stay tuned, get on my mailing list, and get notified when I launch my women's community, which will be called The Awakened Woman Loving Fiercely. Thank you for listening.